I'm Nate Savage with GuitarFam.com, where it is our mission to help you play the songs you love with the people you love. Now, I have a question for you. Have you been playing fingerstyle guitar for a while, or maybe you're just getting into it and you're finding out that it is way more complicated than you initially thought it would be when you first decided to get into it? Or maybe you're thinking to yourself, man, there's just so much going on here that I don't even know what to work on first to get better. Most of the time when I'm teaching private lessons and somebody's struggling with fingerstyle, it's because they haven't taken the time to program in their thumb. And if you think about it, there's a lot going on with the fingerstyle. You gotta think about your fretting hand, where your fingers are going, timing, where you are in the song, all your musicality and all that. And if your thumb is, eating up all your bandwidth and your CPU for your brain, it makes it really hard to focus on all the other stuff. But if you have your thumb programmed into where you don't have to think about it, you're free to concentrate on the music. And before we get into this, if you need a more detailed approach on how to train your thumb, go to GuitarFam.com and sign up for the free Fingerstyle Thumb Bootcamp. The link is in the description for you. Now, one thing that we need to address before we get into this is which technique you're going to use. And it doesn't matter which one, I'll tell you that. You could use, no thumb pick, or thumb pick, doesn't matter. Then you could use like a classical technique where your wrist is floating. And then you could use maybe a folk style where your pinky is planted up here, or some combination of, these two fingers are one of them. You could use that, that's fine. You could also do more of a planted wrist. And I like to call this Travis picking style, because this is, what people use when they're doing that kind of thumpy thumb pick style, where they're muting back here. Or you could do even some kind of a hybrid picking, where you're using a regular flat pick and you're using the rest of your fingers to pick the higher strings. The important thing here is, try all of these different methods or techniques of fingerstyle out and stick to one for now. It's good to experiment with them all, but stick to one and get used to the anchoring, whatever that is, whether it's, classical, my arm back here is on the guitar, and that's kind of my anchor point, so I can tell where I am. If I'm doing more of a Travis picking, my wrist is going to be planted here, but I have some kind of tactile reference, so I can program in my thumb, and it has some point of reference, so I know where to go. If I'm doing the more folk thing where I plant a finger up here, my fingers on a pick guard up here are going to be what is giving me my point of reference. It doesn't matter which one you pick, as long as you have one and you have some kind of point of reference. Okay, the first thing you need to do is just realize that in general, this isn't a rule. Your thumb is going to get the E, A, and D strings, the lower strings on here, in general. So that's what they're going to be assigned to. I break that rule all the time, but that's what we want to focus on, programming in the location of the E, A, and D strings. And what I end up doing a lot of times, regardless of which technique I'm using, is I put these three fingers, 1, 2, 3, right on the G, B, and a high E strings. That way I have some kind of foundational setup. If you're going to plant your pinky, that's fine. If you're going to plant your wrist, that's fine. If you're going to float it, that's fine too. But that is my setup. That way I have another tactile or point of reference for my thumb. And the first thing to do is just go through and play single notes on the E, A, and D strings. So just E. Can I hit that repeatedly over and over again, accurately, not make a mistake? And what I also like to do, I like to set up a camera or a mirror in front of me so I can see what's going on. I like to look back too, but that's kind of hard on the neck. So do one of those things to see what's going on while you're programming this in, because it's important. Pay attention to what it feels like, or what it looks like if you're using a camera, your phone or a mirror. And then move to the A string and really pay attention to how that's different, how it feels different. That's all you're focusing on, is trying to program in that feeling for that particular string. And you don't have to do much of this every day. It's a minute or two for each string. A minute for each string will be a good place to start. Then move to the D string. And you'd be surprised how tough it is to do this 100% accurate all the time. Just bouncing, E, A, D, and then cycle through them again. So that is kind of level one. That's where you want to start, again, using whatever tactile reference you have to program in the E, the A, and the D strings. Now, once you can do that, it's kind of time to put yourself to the test or get to that next level. What you want to do, have the same setup, these three fingers up here, on the top three, the high three strings, and then start being able to cycle through the E and A strings, just E, A, and D strings, just right in a row. E, A, D, E, A, D, E, A, D. If you need to look back, that's totally cool. The key here is not to let even one mistake slip by, because what you're doing is you're programming in your computer, your brain, and your thumb. And if you let a mistake slip by, you're programming it in wrong. And that makes it really tough to get through more complicated accompaniment patterns or fingerstyle songs that require your thumb to be deadly accurate, bouncing around all over the place, you know. So this is really ground zero for getting really good at fingerstyle. And go slow as you need to make sure you're going to be 100% accurate. I know it sounds simple, but this really is the gospel truth of fingerstyle. This is where you have to start. Once you can do that, feel free to do variations on that. You know, start on the D and go D, A, E. It may seem like the same exercise, but it's not. It's completely different because you have to do the jump from E to D. That will feel different. And you'll know if you've programmed in the E, A, and D strings right or not, because you won't make very many mistakes. If you're constantly making mistakes on this, go back to level 1 and do just E, 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 A, 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 D, 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 way slower than that, spending, you know, a minute or so on each string. And what you're gonna find is when you start a new practice session for fingerstyle, you're gonna need to start, for a while, you're gonna need to start with this every time. And the more you do, the more you force yourself to recall this, the more you're gonna sit down for a practice session and be like, oh, my thumb kind of knows where these are now. I don't have to think about it as much. I'm more free to either concentrate on the pattern I'm doing, my fretting hand, or my fingers, what they're playing, or just the song I'm playing along to in general. Okay, the final level for your foundational thumb aim or accuracy is going to be to skip some strings. And this will get you used to the coordinations you need to do for, you know, kind of alternating bass lines. So what you want to do is go just E, D, A, D. There are other alternating patterns that you can do and that you'll have to learn, but this is a really foundational one. If you can do this one, you can do the other ones too. So E, D, A, D. And one thing that happens here when I do this kind of stuff, if it's a more complicated song, one thing that really helps me, and I don't know why, maybe somebody out there is a psychologist or something can tell me in the comments, if I visualize, don't even look back, I just close my eyes and visualize where the E, A, and D strings are. That helps me be more accurate. I'd say I'm probably 20% more accurate when I was going over this stuff if I just visualize them in my mind's eye. It's almost better than looking in a mirror or camera if I have something up. But that's the last one. And you know, I'm saying this in a 10-minute YouTube video. This is something you have to do every day for a sustained period of time until you program your thumb accuracy into where there's no doubt that you can hit the E, A, or the D whenever you want, regardless of, you know, the song or the accompaniment pattern that you're playing. It's really important to do that. Another thing you can do, just kind of a bonus one, is just randomize things. That'll really let you know if you have the locations programmed correctly. But the thing that's critical for me, man, is having some kind of tactile reference. So my hand has a point of reference and it knows exactly where that E string is going to be. And you may feel when you change guitars, if you have more than one guitar, if the string spacing on it is different, it may take you a few minutes to get acclimated to that new guitar. But it's something that you can think about and work towards if you have multiple guitars. And one last thing that I'll say here is once you get the basics of thumb accuracy down, apply it to some chord progressions. You don't even have to play anything with your fingers. Like you can do a C chord, you know, with an alternating pattern. Just working on just the chord with the G. And what that does is that slowly adds one other layer on top, so you don't have to worry about what's going on with your fingers, what's going on with the melody on top. You're just adding a chord to it. And then, you know, like an E chord or an A chord. And that's a nice next step for that. So this may seem a little bit too simple or too straightforward for you. And you may be thinking to yourself, does this really work? If I do this on a daily basis, will I get better at fingerstyle? The answer to me is yes. When I started focusing on thumb accuracy and accompaniment patterns in my practice time, that made learning new fingerstyle songs a lot easier. And I resisted it for a long time, but when I finally gave in and started practicing stuff like this, that's when I started to be able to play all the fingerstyle songs that I had always wanted to play. So if you have any questions about this at all, you can just send them to support@guitarfem.com. We would love to hear from you, or you can just leave a comment below. And don't forget, if you'd like a more detailed approach to getting your thumb accuracy in shape, go sign up for the Fingerstyle Thumb Bootcamp at guitarfem.com. The link will be in the description below for you.